Now, after completing the periodic table, we will come to the periodic properties. So, the periodic properties you can see, we will be studying about atomic radius. We will be studying about, in atomic radius only we are having the ionic radius. We will be studying the ionization energy or ionization enthalpy. We will be studying next is electron gain enthalpy, which you have studied in the lower classes as electron affinity. The new name is electron gain enthalpy. Then electronegativity. Then other secondary properties are there like oxidation state, metallic character, non-metallic character, valency, chemical reactivity. That all those things we will be studying. So one by one. Now first we'll come to the atomic radius. The atomic size generally you can see in the screen it is written decreases across a period. Got it? It decreases across a period. Listen carefully. As for the elements of the second period, it is because within the period the outer electrons are in the same valence shell, and the effective nuclear charge, that is nothing but it increases as the atomic number increases. Got it? Now, what is atomic radius? First we'll understand that. What is atomic radius? Now see, if I just tell you before going to the atomic, what you can say, radius, the definition which you can see it on the screen, just let me tell you what is atomic radius. Suppose we are having an atom from the center to that of the outermost shell containing electrons, that is called as atomic radius. From the center, the distance from the center to the outermost shell containing electrons, that is called as atomic radius. Or according to the modern atomic theory, the distance from the center of the nucleus to the point up to which the density of the electron cloud is maximum. That is, the probability of finding an electron is maximum. The distance from the center of the nucleus to the point up to which the distance of the electron cloud, density of the electron cloud, we can say is maximum. That is, the probability of finding an electron is maximum, is known as the atomic radius. That is called as the atomic radius. Now, let me tell you, there are several difficulties which is actually involved in finding the atomic radius of an element. There are several difficulties involved. Then you can ask me, sir, the radius which you are having it, which you have read it, is it not the actual atomic radius? Let me tell you, they are not the actual value. They are the probabilistic picture. Again the same thing, probabilistic picture. Got it? It is the probabilistic picture of an atom. Got it? If an atom is considered to be a sphere, the atomic size is given by the radius of the sphere and is commonly known as atomic radius. Got it? Here what I said, if an atom is considered, again same thing, we are considering it to be a sphere. We are considering an atom to be a sphere, no? Then the atomic size is what? It's nothing but the radius of the sphere and it's commonly known as atomic radius. So, what is the difficulties involved in finding out the atomic radius? Got it? Now, for example, if I ask you to find out the radius of a ball, a cricket ball or a football, what you will do is that from the center you will measure the distance of the outer surface of the ball. You will say, sir, this is the radius. Correct? But is there any precise boundary in case of an atom? Is there any specific boundary in case of an atom? First of all, the size of an atom cannot be determined precisely. Since the electron cloud surrounding the atom does not have a sharp boundary, listen children very carefully. First of all, the size of an atom, you cannot determine the size of an atom precisely, means accurately, you cannot say. Again I repeat, it is also nothing but probabilistic pictures. Since the electron cloud surrounding the atom does not have a sharp boundary, we do not have a sharp boundary, we do not have, see, because the atom, the boundary is not made up of any particular cement or bricks or something like that. So we can measure the distance and we can say, no, it is just an electron cloud. This is due to the reason that the probability of finding an electron never becomes zero, even if you move from large distance from that of the nucleus. Now, why did I say that it's not made up of bricks or cement? The thing is that it is nothing but the electron cloud. The probability of finding an electron never becomes zero. You go on moving from the nucleus, you will see one or more electrons, you will be getting it. One or two electrons, you will be getting it. One or another electron, you will be getting it, even if you move from large distance from the nucleus. So can you say exactly where, up to which distance an electron will be there, and beyond that electron cannot be there? You can't. You cannot say. See, listen, this is point number 1. Next, point number 2 is, it is not possible to isolate a single atom. Can you isolate a single atom? No. Why? Because an atom does not exist independently. It's not possible to isolate. Again, it's hypothetical. The probability distribution of electrons of an atom is appreciably affected by the presence of some other atoms, alright, in its neighborhood. Now, suppose if an atom is there, let us say a chlorine atom is there, sodium atom is there. So, due to the presence of chlorine atom, the sodium atom will, sodium ion or the chloride ion will come very closer to each other. So, there what you find is that the electron cloud is affected by the nearby atoms, and it may change in going from one environment to that of the other. Now, when sodium ion and chloride ion is there, then it is changing. If you take a sodium atom and if you take a bromide atom, nothing is going to happen there, because they are not charged particles. So there is no force of attraction between them. So it changes from environment to environment, from situation to situation. Got it? So for all these reasons, got it? When for all these reasons, and moreover, that also you know it, that atomic radius changes when the atom is present in different bonded states. Just now I gave you the example, the sodium chloride, sodium bromide. It changes from different bonding state. The atomic radius changes. In some case, the force of attraction is maximum. So, there in that case, the electron cloud will be pulled stronger towards it. So, the size is going to become still little bit smaller. Where the pull is not so large, the size is going to become little bit bigger. Definitely, because if you are pulling an object, then definitely squeezes is in size. If the pull is not there, then the size is not being squeezed. We can say that. So hence you find that there are several difficulties there. It is not possible to isolate an atom. The atomic radius changes from situation to situation, from environment to environment. The next is that we don't have a sharp boundary up to which we can calculate and say this is atomic radius. So hence, whatever the value you are seeing it is nothing but the probabilistic picture. Then is it wrong? No, it is not wrong, because the entire atomic structure is based upon probabilistic picture, and this probabilistic picture is not taken upon one experiment. Several experiments was being done, and this conclusion has been arrived accordingly. Several experiment has been done in several cases. Then the average value is being taken and the radius is being calculated, and thus we are drawing a graph for it accordingly. Got it? We are drawing a graph for it accordingly for that particular purpose. So hence, understood what is atomic radius? Got it? It is actually the distance from the center of the nucleus to the outermost shell, or up to which the density of the electron cloud is maximum, we can say that. But there are several difficulties which is involved in it, because it is not possible to isolate an atom, and so many things I have said you. Got it? Now, based upon this atomic radius, we are having covalent radius, we are having metallic radius, we are having van der Waals radius. Got it? We are having different, in ionic radius we are having cationic radius and ionic radius, and so many different kind of radius we are having it. Got it? So you can see the graph here. See the graph, you can see I was talking about the graph just now to you. So the second period, you can see that the atomic number is increasing, the atomic size is decreasing. You can see from the graph. See, atomic number is increasing. Atomic number is increasing means the second period starts from lithium, then beryllium, then boron, then carbon, then nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine. You can see what? Atomic number is increasing. Clear? But the atomic size is decreasing. You can see the graph is coming down. It is coming down. In certain cases, you can see some curvature is there. That I will explain you why it is so. That I will explain you why it is so. Why this particular curvature. Now, you can see the graph is not a smooth curve. Can you see? There in nitrogen, that is slightly, the atomic radius is greater than that of carbon. Why? Because if you write the electronic configuration of nitrogen, if you see, that is 1s2, 2s2, 2p3, atomic number is 7. Got it? In case of carbon, definitely it will be less, because as you are moving from left to right across a period, remember it, listen carefully. As you are moving from left to right across a period, atomic size decreases. Why? Because the nuclear charge increases. What is nuclear charge? The charge of the nucleus. What is present in the nucleus? Neutrons and protons. Neutrons has got no charge. Protons is positively charged. So as the atomic number is increasing, number of protons is increasing. So hence we can say nuclear charge is increasing. As the nuclear charge is increasing, it will pull the electrons towards itself. Isn't it? Electrons which is there in the shells, it will pull the electron towards itself, due to which the atomic size is going to decrease. Accordingly, the effective atomic radius decreases. Got it? So hence when you move from left to right across a period, what I say, it is affected by nuclear charge. It depends upon nuclear charge. Even if the number of shells remains the same in a particular period, like you can see here, second period, all are second period, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, all are second period. But here, why the atomic size is decreasing when you move from left to right? Because nuclear charge is increasing. Nucleus, which consists of protons, positive charge, it pulls electrons towards itself, because electrons is negative. So hence, as it pulls, the atomic size decreases. It squeezes slightly. Hence, when you move from left to right across a period, in any period, what you find is this, any period, when you move from left to right across a period, the atomic size decreases. But why in case of nitrogen, slightly it is more. Got it? Slightly it is, the atomic size you can see slightly it is more than carbon, because that is what I was explaining you. Generally it should be, the atomic size of nitrogen should be less. Children, listen carefully. Atomic size of nitrogen should be less than that of carbon. But nitrogen outermost subshell is half filled, because 1s2, 2s2, 2p3. I said you already, if it is half filled or fully filled, the outermost subshell, then it is said to be stable in nature. It is stable in nature, so it is stable. So once it is stable, what happens is that it does not have any affinity to pull the electrons towards itself. It does not have, because it is quite stable. So due to stability, what happens is that it does not have any affinity. So hence the electrons moves a little bit far apart from one another, because outermost subshell is stable. Got it? It is stable. Again and again I am saying, due to stability, what happens? The electrons, they move far apart. Why? Because they repel one another slightly. They repel one another slightly. Due to this stability and that of repulsion, the atomic size slightly increases. So hence, the atomic size of nitrogen is more than that of carbon. Slightly more. Very slightly more, we can say that. More than that of carbon. Is it clear what I said? That is, when you are moving from left to right, the atomic size should decrease. But in case of nitrogen, you find it is slightly more than that of carbon. The reason is that if you write electronic configuration of nitrogen, you will find that is nothing but the carbon, that is nothing but what you find is, that is nitrogen, sorry, carbon I am saying, nitrogen, you will find it out, that is its outermost subshell is that is half filled. As it is half filled, it is stable. So slightly in that case, the atomic size, what you can find is that it slightly increases, because stability, due to stability. Got it? It's slightly, it is that it's increasing slightly. Got it? Because slightly you can see it is higher. The curve is little bit more than what you can say, that is little bit higher, in the higher side, that is towards the nitrogen, but not so high. Again and again I am saying it, not so high. It is not slightly more than that of carbon, slightly, very slightly more than that of carbon, and less than that of oxygen. Alright, definitely it is less than that of oxygen, no doubt about it, because when you move from left to right, the atomic size is decreasing. Here little bit you find it out. Again when you go to that is neon, again when you go to neon, again the atomic size is increasing, that is it's increasing. Why? Because same thing, the outermost shell is fully filled. When the outermost shell is fully filled, the electrons, they repel one another. When they repel one another, then what happens? The atomic size slightly increases. It is just like, suppose you would have been in a class, I would have told you that suppose in a class you are sitting in a bench, like it is what you can say, the bench is made for 3 students to sit. If 2 are sitting, comfortable, but if 3 are sitting, even if it is made for 3 students, but you will slightly repel one another. due to which one of the student will slightly move his leg outside to sit comfortably. But when two are sitting, comfortably you are sitting. Nobody is putting the leg outside, slightly. But when three are sitting, it might be that the third student can put his or her leg little bit outside. Got it? So as to sit comfortably, so as to arrange. So you arrange yourselves in that manner. Here also same thing it is there. The nitrogen arranges itself in such a manner. Because even if it has got capacity of 3, but still then some pull of repulsion is being created. Same thing in case of inert gases also. Neon, argon, krypton, xenon. As the outermost shell is fully filled, it is stable. The electrons repel one another. Due to repulsive forces, what you find is that the atomic size increases. So when you move from left to right across a period, atomic size decreases, remember it, up to halogens. Up to group 17, beyond group 17, again atomic size increases. Because you have to say that repulsive forces is much more than that of the attractive forces. The repulsive forces, electrons which they repel, due to repulsion, the atomic size increases because it is stable. So the repulsive forces is much more than the attractive forces. Where the attractive forces between the electrons and the nucleus. That is the nuclear charge is increasing. Here also the nuclear charge is increasing, but the repulsive forces is more, due to which the atomic size slightly, that is, increases. Not slightly, much more it increases. Rather, I should say, in any particular period, you can find it out, the atomic size of alkali metals is the bigger. Then the second position generally comes of the inert gas. The second position generally comes of the inert gas. Or in certain cases you can find that is inert gas is the first position, then the alkali metals, and after that it decreases as usual. Alright, that also is there, exception. That also is there. But generally we find that the atomic size of the first alkali metals is the bigger. Then after that we get the noble gas. Got it? Then after that we, what you can say, get the other elements. Like in this particular, you will say, if you ask me for the second period, then in second period you find the lithium. I remember it, so I am saying you no need to remember. Lithium has atomic size of 152. That is picometer, the atomic radiuses. Whereas neon is 160. Nearly same it is, na? Nearly same it is. Nearly same it is. But if you see the number, then you will find the neon is bigger slightly than that of the lithium. But in case of third period, you find the atomic size of sodium is 196, whereas that of argon is 191 picometer. Got it? So in this way, slightly differs. So we can say that alkali metal, in most of the cases, alkali metal is the first, then the noble gas, then after that the rest of the elements will follow accordingly. So the smallest is your nothing but the halogens in any particular period. Smallest is the halogens. The smallest is. So hence atomic radius decreases when you move from left to right across a period. Why? Because the nuclear charge increases. But when you come down the group, the atomic size increases, because down the group is not affected by the nuclear charge. Because nuclear charge, what you find is that is the electrons in the outermost shell remains the same. This is affected by the number of shells. So as the number of shells is increasing, definitely the atomic size is going to increase. As the number of shell is increasing, there is no question of nuclear charge here, because number of shell is increasing. So hence, that is, we can say the atomic size is increasing. So down the group atomic size increases, across the period atomic size decreases. I have discussed thoroughly with you that what is about the atomic radius I have discussed. Now next is, we'll come to, that is the different types of atomic radius. The first is your covalent radius. It is defined as 1/2 of the distance between the nuclei of the two covalently bonded atoms of the same element in a molecule. Covalently bonded atoms, when two atoms they undergo covalent bond formation. Two atoms undergoes covalent. See, they slightly overlap upon one another. And in case of van der Waals radius, see, van der Waals radius is greater than that of the covalent radius. See the distance. Alright, see there. In case of van der Waals radius, what do you find? It is defined as 1/2 of the distance between the nuclei of two identical non-bonded isolated atoms. Now think of, in case of covalent radius, the atoms they come closer to each other, so close to each other that they overlap upon one another. So some distance of overlapping you can see, a common distance. But in case of, listen carefully, in case of van der Waals radius, the atoms they come closer to each other, but there is no question of any overlapping here. the two identical non-bonded non-bonded, see the word here, they are not bonded, but in case of covalent they are bonded. So non-bonded isolated atoms, let us say one neon and another neon, will they overlap? No. But when chlorine and another chlorine, yes, they will overlap. One pair of electron is shared between them. So hence, for that particular purpose, covalent radius definitely will be smaller, because if you find the 1/2 of the distance, it will be less. And in case of van der Waals radius, when you find the 1/2 of the distance, it is more, because again and again I am saying you, in case of van der Waals radius, as you can see in this figure, it's not overlapping. It's not overlapping. They are in contact. At the most, they are in contact. But in covalent radius, they are overlapping upon one another, due to which covalent radius is slightly smaller than that of the van der Waals radius. You can see it here. Here you can see van der Waals radius very clearly. Alright, very clearly you can see covalent van der Waals radius. Can you see it there? They are in touch with one another. And below you can see the covalent radius. You can see chlorine, the covalent radius. They are overlapping upon one another. So definitely, in both the cases, we find the bond length as we find the radius as half of the bond length. The distance between, what is that definition you see? It is defined as 1/2 of the distance. 1/2 of the distance between the nuclei of two covalently bonded atoms of the same element in a molecule. From between the two nucleus, you find the radius, you find the distance, and then you divide it by 2. Same thing for van der Waals radius also. You find the distance between the two nucleus and divide it by 2. But here divided by 2 when you do, and in case of covalent radius divided by 2 when you do. In case of covalent radius, the distance is less. As you can see it here, because overlapping is there. But in case of van der Waals radius, overlapping is not there. They just come closer. They just come in contact, as you can see it here. So hence, covalent radius is always smaller than that of the van der Waals radius. I hope you got it this point. Now next is metallic radius. It is defined as 1/2 of the distance between the two adjacent metal atoms in the metal lattice. Now, what is metallic radius? For example, when two sodium atoms, when two lithium atoms, when two potassium atoms, they come closer to one another. Alright, they form a bond that is called as a metallic bond. So let me tell you, metallic bond is what? It is defined as the simultaneous force of attraction between the valence electrons and that of the kernels, alright, which is called as a metallic bond. It is a simultaneous force of attraction between the valence electrons, valence electrons in the outermost shell, and that of the kernels. Kernels are positively charged. What is kernels? K-E-R-N-E-L-S. Kernels. What are kernels? See, in a metallic lattice, lattice means what? Structure. That is called metallic lattice. We use the term lattice. Lattice means a definite structure. Means a particular structure which has got a definite shape. Now, the valence electrons are mobile. Therefore, they are only weakly attracted to the metal or the kernels. Kernels are the space, listen carefully, the space which is created after the loss of valence electrons. Kernels, metallic kernels are the space which is created after the loss of valence electrons. So, when there is a loss of electrons, what charge will develop? Positive charge. So, hence metallic kernels is what? Positive. Valence electrons are what charge? Negative charge. So, between negative and positive, there will be a simultaneous force of attraction. That simultaneous force of attraction between the two neighboring metallic atoms is known as what? Metallic bond. What did I said? Valence electrons, outermost shell. What are metallic kernels? Metallic kernels, I said you, the space which is created after the loss of valence electrons. That is also called metallic ions or kernels. There will be a weak attractive force between the valence electrons, which are mobile electrons, and that of the metallic kernels. So this particular bond is known as a metallic bond. And a metallic radius is always longer than that of the covalent radius. Always larger than that of the covalent radius. Always. Because in metallic radius, again the same thing. No overlapping is taking place. In covalent radius, overlapping is taking place. So here the bond gets slightly smaller. For example, I remember it, I am saying you, like a metallic radius of sodium is 186 picometer. Sodium atom. Two sodium atom are joined. Whereas, when the covalent radius is being formed between two sodium, atom in the vapor state, alright, then the radius is 154 picometer. Because in the vapor state, they exist as a covalent molecule. In the vapor state, in the gaseous state, but in the solid state, they exist as a what? Nothing but a metallic atom. So I said That atomic radius depends from what you can say situation to situation. Alright, it depends upon the environment, we can say that. So same metal sodium atom, when it is in the solid state, it behaves as a metallic radius. It behaves as a metallic atom. And it's what you can say, the radius is 186 picometer. That's called metallic radius. But when the same sodium atom, when it is in the vapor state, it behaves as a covalent radius. Covalent atom, because the overlapping of electrons takes place, and hence the bond length is now 154 picometer, we can say that. Alright, same thing for all the atoms in this way. So 154 is smaller than 186. So hence metallic radius is slightly smaller than that of the covalent radius. So hence you can see it here. Van der Waals radius is the biggest. Then you will get the metallic radius. Then you will get the covalent radius. I hope you got it. The below which I have given you the comparison. Van der Waals radius is the biggest. You can see Van der Waals radius is the biggest. Then the covalent radius, and then the metallic radius. You can see it here. The Van der Waals radius. Then we are having the metallic radius. Then we are having the covalent radius. Here another metallic radius is also given between the sodium atom, which I was just talking to you. Alright, so you understood between covalent, Van der Waals, and that is what you can say, that's metallic radius, so to say. So now Van der Waals radius in case is always greater than that of the covalent radius. One more reason I will give you. In case of Van der Waals, the force of attraction is weak. Therefore, the internuclear distance in case of atoms held by Van der Waals forces are much larger, because the force is weak. If the force is stronger, they will come closer. The force is weak. Compared to covalent bond, the force is weak in case of Van der Waals forces. So hence adds a weak bond, adds a weak force. So definitely the atoms will be far apart from one another compared to covalent. So hence Van der Waals radius is more than that of the covalent radius. Alright, that's the reason we can say that. Another reason also we can give, in this way many reasons you can give it, in different ways you can understand it. A covalent bond is formed by the overlapping of two half-filled atomic orbitals. What I said, half-filled atomic orbitals. So a part of the electron cloud becomes common. Just now which I was saying, the overlapping is taking place, as you can see it here, in case of covalent overlapping, half-filled electron cloud. So as it overlapping, some part is being used up. Alright, clear? So now I hope you understood. Now next we will come to that is you can see I have another graph I have given for variation of atomic size of that of alkali metals, means group 1. See, alkali metals, as you move away as you move down the group, the atomic size increases. See, can you see it here? Lithium is smaller than sodium, then potassium, then rubidium, then cesium. The atomic size is increasing. You can see it here. Whatever it is increasing. The graph is not straight in this way, but it is increasing. It's a gradual. Alright. Now next is in case of fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, also you can see the atomic size is increasing. That is a group 17 element it is shown here, and group 1 it is being shown here. Both the element. In both the cases, as you move down the group, atomic size increases. Fluorine is smaller, iodine is bigger. Again here lithium is smaller, cesium is the bigger. You can see that. Francium it is not taken because it is gaseous, it is in the liquid state and it's radioactive in nature basically. Francium, you will read it later on. Alright, now atomic and ionic radii, it is being given of isoelectronic species. Isoelectronic species, we can say isoelectronic species. So what are isoelectronic species? Isoelectronic species, the name itself, it's isoelectron, means equal number of electrons. So that means, that is if two species, that is whether it is positive charge or negative charge or atoms, anything it can be. So ions of the different elements which have the same number of electrons but different magnitude of nuclear charge are called as isoelectronic species. Alright, it may be neutral species or it may be ionic species, I said you. Alright, so the species or the ions of the different elements having the same number of electrons but different magnitude of the nuclear charge are called isoelectronic species. That is, you can say that isoelectronic species. Now I can give an example. For example, you see N3 minus and O2 minus. N3 minus means nitrogen is having 7 electrons. 3 minus means more 3. How many it is? 10. O2 minus, oxygen is having 8. Neutral oxygen, 8, 2 more electrons. O2 minus and 2 more electrons. How many it is? 10. So they are isoelectronic in nature. Similarly, Ne is also isoelectronic to that of N3 minus and O2 minus. Similarly, Na plus is also isoelectronic. Why? Na means 11 electrons total. Na plus, it is losing 1 electron. So it is again 10. So they are all isoelectronic. N3 minus, O2 minus, Ne, Na plus, even Mg2 plus, even Al3 plus. Got it? They are all said to be isoelectronic in nature. Got it? Now, after that I will come to, that is your ionic radii. If you see, it is the distance, effective distance from the center of the nucleus up of the ion up to which it exerts its influence on its electron cloud. Same thing, just like your atomic radius. Here instead of atom I am saying ion. From the center to the outermost shell up to which its influence on the electron cloud is there. Got it? That is said to be whether the ion is positively charged, whether the ion is negatively charged. If it is positively charged, it is cationic radius. If it is negatively charged, it is anionic radius. Got it? From the center to the outermost shell, where the density of the electron cloud is maximum, we can say that. Clear? But here the atom is not neutral. Here instead of atom we are taking an ion. The radius of the cation, remember it, the radius of the cation is always smaller than that of its parent atom. Got it? Now coming to cationic radius, you will find that a cationic radius is always smaller than that of the parent atom. Means Na plus ion is always smaller than Na. Why? Why it is so? Because in Na there is 11 electrons, in Na plus there is 10 electrons. Got it? In which case the effective nuclear charge is more. Means who is pulling the electrons more strongly? That is nothing but Na plus. Because what I said, Na plus is having 10 electrons and Na is having 11 electrons. And how many protons? Na is having 11 protons, Na plus is also having 11 protons. In which case nuclear charge is more? Nuclear charge is more in case of Na plus. So as a nuclear charge is more, it will pull the electrons more strongly towards itself. Did you understand what I said? Again I repeat. Sodium atom 11 electrons, 11 protons. Sodium ion 10 electrons but 11 protons. Protons is 11 only because it is not losing protons, it is losing electrons. So nuclear charge is more in case of sodium ion. So as a nuclear charge is more, the effective nuclear charge is more, so it will pull the electrons more strongly towards itself. Which? The remaining electrons in case of sodium ion. It will pull more strongly towards itself. 10 electrons are there, na? Those 10 electrons will pull more strongly towards itself. So hence the atomic size slightly decreases. It decreases slightly, we can say that. So what we find, the radius of the cation is smaller than that of its parent atom is due to decrease in the number of shells. Yeah, that also is there. In case of sodium atom, there are 3 shells. And in case of sodium ion, we can say hypothetically 2 shells are there because 1 shell is missing, na? 1 electron is not there. Got it? Why did I say hypothetically? Because actually shells, we cannot see it, na? It is discrete, it is for that reason I said. So increase in the effective nuclear charge, that I said you already, that in case of sodium ion there is effective nuclear charge is greater than that of a neutral atom. But you cannot compare sodium to that of potassium. Don't compare potassium ion or potassium ion to sodium atom or potassium ion to magnesium atom. No. That is not comparison. That we cannot do it. We can compare it in case of isoelectronic species. I will tell you that is later on. So always remember that the size of a cation, the radius of a cation is always smaller than that of its neutral atom, parent's neutral atom, corresponding neutral atom, due to decrease in the number of shells and due to increase in the effective nuclear charge. Similarly, the radius of an anion is always larger than of its parent atom, mainly because of the decrease in the effective nuclear charge. Because an anion, how it is formed? By gain of electrons. By gain of electrons. For example, chlorine atom is there. It is having 17 electrons and 17 protons. But chlorine ion has got 17 protons but 18 electrons. 18 electrons. Got it? So 18 means outermost shell is fully filled. Here the number of electrons is increasing. So effective nuclear charge is decreasing. So when the nuclear charge is due to decrease, that means when the attractive force is going to decrease, the repulsive force is going to increase automatically. So when the repulsive forces increases, the atomic size also increases, because when the electrons are repelling one another, then the atomic size also increases. So for that reason, a chloride ion is always greater than that of a chlorine atom. Got it? A chloride ion is always greater, because I said you that in case of sodium chlorine atom 17 electrons, 17 protons. In case of chloride ion 17 electrons but 17 protons but 18 electrons. So here the nuclear charge is decreasing. 17, na? Protons is 17. So nuclear charge is decreasing. So nuclear charge is decreasing when nuclear charge does not play a role here. That means the attractive force is decreasing. Nuclear charge, what it does? It attracts the electrons. So attractive force decreases, repulsive force is increasing. Due to increase in repulsive forces, the the ionic size increases. So size of an anion is always larger than that of its corresponding neutral atom. Got it? So this is about your atomic radius, covalent radius, metallic radius, van der Waals radius, where van der Waals radius is greater than metallic than covalent. Then in case of ionic radius, you studied that nothing but what you say, that in case of ionic radius you studied that in case of ionic radius, that is cationic radius is always greater than the corresponding neutral atom, and anionic radius cationic radius is always smaller, is always smaller than the corresponding neutral atom, and an anionic radius is always larger than the corresponding neutral atom, we can say that. Clear? So in this way about the isoelectronic species I'll talk to you later on. I'll tell you there is something more I have to explain you about it, that I'll tell you later on. So this is all about your atomic radius, so to say. Thank you very much.